What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing something absolutely epic today. We're actually going live. I do have my good pal, of course, Blake, coming to us. We're going to be starting up this show. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking fantasy football. Our goal is to do this weekly for you guys because really we're both heavily into fantasy football. Before I dive any deeper, Blake, what's going on? Let everybody know what's going on. We're excited for this. How's it going, man?
What's poppin', baby? I appreciate you having me back on the show. Yeah, I've been excited. You and me have been kind of talking behind the scenes about this thing for the last probably 2 weeks and officially starting to get it off and running today. I'm good. I'm just sitting back. I got my little, here, I'm always backwards on the camera. Got the little, the sports cave going on right now. And I did a little makeshift soundproofing. So I hope I don't sound like I'm in a hallway too bad, but yeah, I'm excited. I appreciate you joining me on the show, and I'm glad to be back with the Beat of KC fans. You know, those are some good people out there. So we're just trying to bring them the best content possible.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So basically what we wanted to kind of accomplish and really get done this first one is kind of, just encompass what truly people want to do with fantasy football. I mean, there's honestly everything you can imagine. There's different platforms. So we really kind of wanted to talk about just if you're new to it or if you're a seasoned veteran who does this every year, going into it, we kind of wanted to talk about, some expectations because you really have like leagues like PPR, 10-team leagues, 12-team leagues. I mean, there's snake drafts, there's auction drafts. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And so we really kind of just wanted to come together for the first episode and just kind of crack the ice. I think our goal as we kind of progress along, before the season starts is really kind of break down, talk about some of the positions and where we would rank players and things like that. But this first one, really kind of just wanted to talk, just general talk, I guess, about fantasy football, man. So what are your thoughts, honestly? Like if you had to pick a go-to platform, I know you and I kind of talked about this, but let everybody know if you had a go-to platform, what are you going to pick as far as where you're going to take your fantasy football?
So I have done probably, I believe, 3 different platforms. I've used Yahoo, I have used ESPN, and then I want to say I've used another one, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. So Yahoo and ESPN right now are probably the ones I've gone to. I personally love ESPN's.
Yeah.
For me, they give you the most breakdowns possible. Usually they update almost all the people as far whether they're starters, whether they're second, third string guys, fifth string guys, they usually have some tidbit of information that you can pull from on a weekly basis. The other thing that I like is that it's very easy to move players in and out. You don't have to, it saves it automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about having to, maybe you were on the John and you were setting something and you had to get up and run somewhere real quick. And hopefully you wiped when you got up and you did. If you didn't save your league, then hopefully you didn't save all the players week to week. So that to me is a little annoying because I'm one of those guys that will sit around and I'll read through, like if I'm looking for somebody in free agency, I'll read 27 guys' bios like I'm on Tinder or something.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to find the perfect match. So I like having the more information possible.
I do too. Yeah, and those are my kind of like, for a very beginner basic platform, even all the way to the extremist. I do think both those platforms offer a lot of good content, and I do 100% have to agree. I like some things how like with Yahoo at the very end they give you like a full write-up as if like a reporter has like just really studied your team, your breakdown, where you picked and things like that, and then they give you like a projection. I think that's absolutely cool. But what I really do like about ESPN is the transitions of how you pick your players, really kind of how the draft progresses. I think it's so cool that they put the actual draft music in there. And like you said too, I think it's cool that the updates, the amount of updates that you get throughout the week, and even when you're drafting, like it just really is a great platform. And I've done numerous leagues on both of them, and I don't really have a whole lot of negatives to say about either one. I know last year the only thing is ESPN one time like crashed and it was down for like a couple days and like couldn't set the lineup. And with the pandemic, some games were pushed back to like certain days. hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't happen this year. But it was kind of screwy last year at times. But man, I tell you, just to play fantasy football, it's an addiction. And you and I have both kind of talked about this. It's a way to watch every game. It's a way to have kind of a hand in the fight, no matter who the team is. Obviously, we're both Kansas City guys, but it may be a Redskins New York Jets game on a Sunday night, but you're going to be tuning in because you may have whoever playing on whichever team. What are your thoughts on kind of like that? I mean, you and I both talked about it. How does it create awareness with football?
Well, I think the biggest thing is typically as somebody who is a homer for your team, there's no like just for prime example right now. If I'm a Royals fan, I'm not going to tune into a Cardinals game. There's no reason for me to. I don't care about the Cardinals. But now if we're switching over to football, if I were a Chiefs fan, and now there's no reason for me to watch a Denver game typically on Sundays because I'm rocking red all day. But now that I've got somebody that I want to monitor their progress in a game because their progress is going to help me win. Now, on a Thursday night, like you said, when it's Bengals versus Jets, like some game that's probably going to be a crapshoot, but you've got Joe Mixon and Joe Burrows, or just you name it, like it makes that game automatically interesting. And now you're not only just watching the game, you're actually rooting for that player. And by watching that game, you end up learning way more about the team you're monitoring. You end up caring more about the overall, I guess, performance of the league, and it gives you a better breakdown. Like fantasy football, in my opinion, makes me a better sports journalist and you a better sports journalist because now I'm much more aware of what's going on every week with teams I otherwise ordinarily wouldn't care about.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I 100% agree with that fact because, that's kind of how I've developed just my awareness, like you said, with players even. Like, you may see somebody and it could be a third string running back and most people would be like, who is that? And you'd be like, oh, I know who that is because they have fantasy football aspect. So yeah, man, I'm 100% on board with that. I really do enjoy every facet about fantasy football. I really like, being able to tune in. Like I usually am not super pumped even about preseason, and really that doesn't translate well to even fantasy, but you got to tune in because you're seeing, how well some of those backups are doing because you may be plugging those onto your roster at some point. And so, yeah, man, it's really gets you involved. So that leads me to this.
Side note, I also think it's great because once you start playing fantasy and once you start watching the other teams, it also helps you with betting. If you got any bettors out there, you're starting to bet on sports and you like sports gambling. If you're, able to do that or have something you're into, definitely helps you with sports gambling because now you're much more aware of what's likely to hit, what's likely not to hit, what defenses are proper, who's going to get turnovers, who's cold right now, who's not going to do it. So it helps with everything all around, which is kind of crazy in our industry.
Yeah.
But a game, almost, and we talked about it earlier. We like playing Madden. Well, this is almost like real life Madden. You are the organizer of your own team. You're the manager of your own team now. So it just helps with not only the journalism side, also the betting side, and also just the aspect of having a good time.
Most definitely, man. So that leads me to this next kind of get up. When it comes to a draft, we're going to say it's just a traditional either 10 or 12 even. And it's
you don't ever play 8-man leagues?
Do 8-man leagues? Holy smokes! Talk about all-star teams. Good night.
Everybody's dropping 20 points a game.
That's insane. Yeah, that would only make it better if it was like 2 quarterback league too. Like one of your flexes could be a quarterback. Oh my god. Oh, but so with that being said, let's just say 10 to 12, and you're in the first round. Obviously, it doesn't matter where you're picking. What is your strategy? Because I think you and I may have a different strategy. I'd be interested to see if you're even in the front of the pack. What are you looking immediately? Are you looking to go? I mean, because there's people out there that, you don't want to convey the message that going quarterback in the first round with pick 3 is a good idea. I mean, let's just be real with people. That's not the best strategy. So what is your kind of strategy when approaching this?
So the first thing that I look at is, one, I do live by one rule. I never, ever draft a quarterback in the first round. The only time I would ever even consider that is if you're doing a snake draft and you have the last pick in that round. because you're going to have the first pick in the next round. So it doesn't really matter if you wanted to go quarterback second round for some reason. I still necessarily wouldn't advise by it. But if that's what you wanted to do, you could pick your quarterback first round because you know your second round pick is going to be right there, right after anyway. So that's the only time ever that I would say, okay, I understand. I typically go either running backs or receivers. Now, the tricky thing is I also like to look at the depth of each position. So one, like this year specifically and last year, I noticed a lot. What position has the least amount of really good guys?
Mm-hmm.
Back was a little odd last year. There was probably 10 to 15 really good guys, maybe. And then it kind of dropped off a little bit. The other thing I noticed is tight end is even slimmer.
Yeah.
If you want somebody who's really going to perform for you in the tight end area, there might be 9. Might be. Like, that's a position that is very slim. So if you were to get a tight end, like let's say you chose Travis Kelce first round this year, I couldn't be mad at you for picking that because I understand, okay, well then you have Waller and Kittle, maybe Kyle Pitts, you got Robert Tonyan, Noah Fant. Other than that, like you're really dropping off a cliff right there.
Most definitely.
And what that does is then sometimes if you're rolling strategy, it causes a fire sale on that position.
Yes.
Because now somebody has seen somebody's gone to get that. So there's only 2 more good ones left. So you can actually, in the tight end area, you can kind of create a quick fire sale if you go Travis Kelce or Darren Waller first round. So I always try to judge it based on that. Like what position has the most depth? That's probably the later I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
Typically that's quarterback.
Yeah, man. I have to laugh because when you said fire sale, I always wait for that one person to break the seal on the kicker. And then it's just like the flood is unleashed, man. The flood is unleashed. And you see like Harrison Butker and then everybody like, Tucker is going. And then anybody else that is anybody that they're going, it's crazy, man. And it's always, you always get that one Yahoo is like 5th round and they take like Tucker from the Baltimore Ravens. And then next thing you know, you're like, crap, should I be taking a kicker? Oh my God. So that made me laugh. But honestly, man, I've kind of had some kind of strategies this year. I was thinking, it depends on honestly where you're drafting. I'm going to go to a comment real quick. KC Sports Report. What is going on, Michael? He says, "What's up, boys? What's going on, man? Hopefully you're having a good evening." But man, I really it depends to me where you're going to be at in the draft. I think if you're it's a snake style draft. If you're drafting 1 through 5, then you really kind of got to consider running back, in my opinion. You got your top tier elite running backs, but then, you kind of start to fall off into some of the question marks. I think receiver is always very deep, but you're not getting, some of them are obviously there's like at least 10 to 15 elite. I would consider elite receivers, but then it really, really just kind of averages out. So it's kind of interesting to see, where you're kind of drafting, obviously, and then what you're going to do. I always kind of like to throw a curveball and like, what if let's say you had the 8th pick in a snake style draft, you took Travis Kelce on the kickback, you took George Kittle. I mean, that's something to think about too, man, because, you're talking tight ends, you're throwing a curveball. People then, talk about breaking the seal, man. Like, people are like, oh, my God, the only one that's really left is Darren Waller. You got Mark Andrews. And then, like you said, does Kyle Pitts kind of creep up there? And then it's really just a question mark after that. So
I have a personal anecdote for that. Last year, I was playing in a league, and we did snake style draft. And the last person in the round, a quarterback hadn't been taken. He obviously had the first pick the next round. He took Patrick Mahomes and then Lamar Jackson.
God.
Instantly, he had a great trade package. He thought, okay, maybe – and honestly, I was like, I wouldn't have done that, but I understand why you did it because now you have the leverage to say, hey, I'll trade Patrick Mahomes. Who doesn't want that? Like, just to say that they have him on their lineup. Yeah. But now you're going to get back to probably mid-level guys that you might not have gotten otherwise being at the last end of the draft. So stuff like that, or like you said, picking 2 tight ends. Now you've got the 2 top guys. Now you have a great trade package, or you've just taken one player out of contention with anybody else you're going to come up with in the league that year. So I mean, there's just so many different strategies that you can kind of go with.
Yeah.
That that are, whether you're, hey, I've got the best lineup, or hey, I've got the best like trade package now because I will get something better in return.
Yeah, and I think I kind of like, maybe even going, if you go Kelsey and then Waller even, and you plug Kelsey as your tight end and then Waller as your flex, depending on if that's how, your league set up, that's really not a bad option. But
Not at all. Waller, I had Waller last year. He killed it for me.
Yeah. And of course, always the question mark is Derek Carr. And, just being a fan of football, Derek Carr does like to airmail half of his throws. That's just being a fan. Now, as a Chiefs fan, Derek Carr is terrible. So there is that. I will say that. But Darcy has a question. Michael, where does CEH go in your fantasy mock? So honestly, I've seen him personally go in the first round because obviously running backs tend to be definitely sought out, especially now that, we have a revamped offensive line for the Chiefs. He's going to be a dual threat for sure. I'm sure you saw some of the stuff he was capable of doing up there at camp today. So I've definitely seen him go in like the later portion of a first round and then kind of snake drafting back into the second. They have him on ESPN, I believe. I got it pulled up over here. I think he's the 15th ranked running back. And that's going to be per PPR, and that's for a 10 to 12 team league. So I've definitely seen him. There's some running backs that they have above him that I kind of question, like Austin Eckler, over in LA. I like what he provides, but I think CEH is definitely going to have a lot more of a, I guess, based on the offense that he's in. What do you think of that?
I'm assuming that they put him there because of his production last year was insane. Because last year CEH was also really high and his production was not that great.
Yeah.
Actually, it was, on a fantasy perspective, it really wasn't that good at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some spurts here and there, but just the way that the Chiefs' production was last year was just kind of odd.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he was probably ranked so high, because of how much he was utilized. It seemed like he was getting 20 points a pop every game. So honestly, I think as much as there probably is going to be a bunch of progression with CEH, I'm a caution guy. I like to see guys that have been proven, and then I wouldn't take Clyde Edwards in the first 2 rounds. That's just me. Personally, I'm cool with losing him because I just don't know if we just haven't proven that he's going to get the production that we want to see from him. Because if he does what we know, he can probably be an Austin Eckler. And if that's the case, that's going to be great. And you got to steal in the draft.
Yeah, for sure.
In my opinion, I'm not going to pick him before the 3rd round just because of just based off last year. And I'm the guy who kind of needs a little proving, but that's just me.
Well, there's a lot of people from Kansas City who have really kind of been reporting on training camp, and people are saying do not sleep on Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon has been showing the capabilities of what he can do catching the football out of the backfield, and so honestly, man, I like Clyde, but I agree where you're drafting him because even just looking over here, which I could pull up for you guys, but we're you got to think about what you have ahead of him, and it starts to be the question mark of where do you envision Jonathan Taylor from the Colts? Do you envision Nick Chubb having a better year than Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Because obviously we understand that Nick Chubb's going to be splitting carries and even catches with Kareem Hunt, obviously the former Chief. And then, the question mark is Antonio Gibson, because they have Antonio Gibson above Clyde Edwards-Helaire there in the Washington football team. So, I think some of those are, it really does depend. I think, this was put out July 30th. So 2 days ago, yesterday. And so like Joe Mixon is falling right there and Aaron Jones, which is very surprising, but that's obviously with Aaron Rodgers coming back. So from just an overall fantasy, like running backs, I'm okay with where you're taking him. And I would 100% agree. Let's see. Darcy says that last year Clyde was a number 2 back, and honestly, I wonder if his value goes up. We kind of agree with that. I think it just depends on where he's drafted for sure. And then he also said that McKinnon looked really good today. So did your boy Noah Gray, maybe a late sleeper pick. I could agree with that as well. I definitely heard rumors that Kelsey's probably not necessarily going to go down in production because of performance by no means, but you want to create the longevity of his career. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think Noah Gray slips into some people's drafts?
Oh, I think Noah Gray. I think he'll be if he gets picked up, he'll be a very late round guy, or probably most likely he'll be a free agent guy that you pick up later in the year once he does start sneaking into the lineup. But we do know Andy Reid loves to, if he can use the 2 tight end set, he loves it because it just creates so many mismatches. Because now you can run the ball, you got a 2 tight end set, you got the best tight end in the entire world. Arguably better than this guy on my shirt right here. So, I mean, that could be very promising. I probably wouldn't draft Noah Gray unless you know that you're in a league with guys or gals who love Chiefs players. Like, there's some people that take a lot of players from their home team. That's something you find a lot. I don't usually advise that. But like, I played with a guy one year who took Dwayne Bowe, Sammy Parker, Jason Dunn at one point. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're taking all the what? But that's how he played the game. So, I would say as far as Noah Gray, just keep an eye on him. Especially, I always try to say, I know everybody wants to get their drafts in. I know they do. Yeah. I try not to do any drafts until the last preseason game.
Well, that's one thing I was going to talk to you about. Yeah, so go ahead with that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, the worst thing about jumping the gun with your fantasy draft is somebody's going to get hurt in preseason. Somebody's going to get hurt in training camp. That is a fact. It happens every year. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. The later you can have your draft, or the closer to the season you can have your draft, the better. That's going to set you up to know, hey, this guy I drafted, like Julio Jones, for example. I drafted Julio Jones in like the third week or the first week or something. First week, obviously you can't do anything about that, but like the third preseason week or something, he got hurt for like 5 weeks, and I was screwed. Now, if I would have known he was going to be out for 5 weeks, he's automatically dropping in my draft, or most maybe being drafted at all. So just kind of, if you got but it's fun because we want to go ahead and just get our lineup set, start looking at it, salivating over it for a whole month before the season starts.
Always.
I get it. But the later you can push it back, the better. Going back to Noah Gray, I think he's going to be a late season or a late draft or free agent pickup during the middle of the season.
Yeah.
It'll just kind of depend on how that goes. I know that they did have a little miscommunication in training camp. He stopped short on a route that then Patrick overthrew it, and the linebackers picked it off. Wasn't on Patrick. That was really more of a miscommunication between Noah. That's going to get fixed, though. He's working with the best end that's ever played, probably. So don't read too much into that. But, yeah, that's just a little tidbit from what we've seen from training camp so far, and probably where it's going to go.
For sure, man. And I think that's significant that you hit on that because, that's a discussion we always have. It seems like every year with everyone. It's like, when do you start your draft? And I would 100% agree. There's some people that will start at the very first preseason game, and I can kind of understand that. But again, you're going to take a first round pick, and you're going to take, a perfect example was Christian McCaffrey, last year. That's somebody you could have drafted, and you go into the season, and I even think he got hurt in week 1, but still, I mean, that is a type of player you're taking, first. I think even Saquon Barkley is a perfect example. Barkley got hurt very, very early on in the season, and your whole entire first round pick is gone, and you have to kind of be able to find a way to recoup from that. So, I completely agree. With us even having a reduced down preseason this year, only having 3 games, I would probably wait until almost that third preseason game and then lock and load and just start unloading as many fantasy drafts as you can, and then dive into the season. So I'm super excited, man. I really am. I think that there's so much potential in this year, and we're not going to break down every position tonight. That's going to be something as we continue to progress and do these episodes before the season starts, and then as the season gets in, we're going to talk about each position, but I'm really looking forward to it because, a perfect example, Cam Akers goes down, tears his Achilles. Now a lot of people are looking for a running back there, if that was even something you're interested in, because I was not interested in any Rams running backs, like I'm not touching anything in Detroit. I think if the entire waiver wire is just, no quarterbacks, maybe you'll look Jared Goff. But That's my thoughts. A little early, a little sneak peek on what I'm thinking there.
Just to add in another, like last year was crazy. Just to give people an example of how players fall that you would never normally think about. I got Stephon Diggs in the 12th round, and I got Aaron Rodgers in the 13th.
Yeah.
Stephon was the top 4 wide receiver last year, and Aaron Rodgers was the top quarter. It was MVP.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy, man. I think, and that's a good topic to kind of lead into. At what point would you draft a quarterback? Because, like we were talking earlier, there's some people that will just go out on a whim and they're like, Patrick Mahomes is there. It's a snake draft. I could take him here and then snake back around. The earliest I would take a quarterback now, because of how deep that position is probably like the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Like I said, the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford is about 5 points, typically.
Yeah.
Be less. It just kind of depends. And I say 5 points on average per week, not obviously total points. But 6th and 7th round, you're gonna get a great quarterback, most likely if you're drafting with people who understand the process.
Yeah.
It's also kind of the other thing is understand who you're playing with.
Yeah.
That way you can kind of try to game their strategies a little bit, and maybe they're silly and they draft a quarterback first, and now you're like, okay, now I got to switch up a little bit. But I would say 6th and 7th is probably perfect. You can even go later, and there's just so many good quarterbacks in the league now.
Yeah.
That you can afford to don't worry if it's 5th and 6th round and you're like, oh, I don't have a quarterback now. I have to pull the trigger now. That there's going to be guys that trickle down.
Yeah, if you go down the list even now, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. Deshaun Watson is at camp, for goodness sakes. The guy's out there practicing, and we know what's going on with him. Russell Wilson, the list goes on, and Aaron Rodgers is back. So right there alone, I've named off some of the best quarterbacks. Tom Brady somehow slipped my mind because whatever with Tom Brady, but it is. That's he and Josh Allen. Holy smokes! So that's what I'm saying. That you could easily miss out on 4 to 5 quarterbacks and still come out with a very, very good quarterback. 6th, 7th, even 8th round. I think so. That leads me to a question too, because that's always where people, the later they get into drafts, they start taking 2s of positions. Another quarterback to fill in for the bye. If it's a defense and special teams combined, you start seeing people take 2 defensive and special teams. You start seeing people take 2 kickers. Are you the type of person that fills in, the extras and you get doubles, or are you somebody who tries to fill up the receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, and then as those buys approach, you address the waiver wire?
So I am a week of guy.
Okay.
If it is the week of a bye and I haven't, if I need a second quarterback, I'm either drafting him at the very end of the draft, or I'm going to wait, pick up a bunch of players that might be able to be trade bait later, and then just quarterback off the waiver wire. Because if you're playing let's say you're playing in a 10-team league, well, let's just say everybody was taken off. Well, sitting at 21 could be Ben Roethlisberger. I'm on Fantasy Pros right now. This was written today. Ben Roethlisberger is sitting at 21. Mm-hmm. Ben Roethlisberger still give you some points as long as he's playing at home. And then, so I'm always the guy. Like last year, for example, I went 3 wide receivers right off the bat and then a running back. I was like, okay, I want to load up my receiving core, and I want to make sure that they're all on different bye weeks, because that way I always have a star receiver in the game and a star possible flex.
Yeah.
I can always add in other guys here and there. My quarterback, as long as you've got one, you're set for the season except for 1 week, or unless they get injured. That's just the dice you might have to roll. I'm usually a week of guy. I can find a kicker who can get me, 6 points, 8 points, 10 points the week of. Defenses are pretty much the same as well. Unless I see a matchup coming up on a bye week that I really think is going to be good, I'll snag that defense early. But I like to have as many possible positions throughout the season as I can get.
Most definitely, man. And I would have to agree because, like last year, when everyone was taking those duplicates of whatever they needed, I was sneaking in picks like CeeDee Lamb
Yeah.
and, some of those types of guys like running backs that eventually were starters due to injuries, where everyone else was like, oh, I want to add the Miami Dolphins to my second defense, or I want to go get Ryan Suckup to be my second kicker. And I'm like, man, I would much rather it come time, like you said, a bye week, and maybe a guy's just not performing, or maybe he got hurt, and now it's my chance to drop him and add, a backup that is just sitting there because there's always good players sitting on, on the waiver wire, especially when you're talking quarterbacks, because those are kind of can become interchangeable, especially on matchups. Certain matchups they match up well, and my question too is like, it's going to be interesting. Like, do you think Trevor Lawrence is drafted this year? Do you think like Zach Wilson is drafted at all this year? Like some of those guys that from an actual football perspective, we expect them to do, I guess maybe not necessarily Zach Wilson, but a lot of people expect Trevor Lawrence to really do some special things when it comes to football. But do you expect them to actually perform in a fantasy aspect? Because, I mean, I always like to look like Najee Harris, obviously drafted out of Alabama, running back, goes to the Steelers. He climbed way up the running back board because of not only how many touches they're talking about him getting, but just his like ability to just run and catch the football. So, like, what are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence and some of those guys? Do you think that they even have an impact in fantasy?
Well, I'll tell you what, the two states that are going to be drafting Trevor Lawrence the most is the state of Florida, because you got Jacksonville, and the state of South Carolina, because you got a bunch of Clemson fans that want to see Trevor Lawrence do really well. Also, he's playing with probably arguably the greatest player to ever grace the field. His name is Timothy Tebow.
Tebow!
Let's get one for Tebow. I did that off camera. Let's do that one on camera. So also, I don't know if you saw, he slung him one right in the corner of the end zone the other day. Beautiful.
Yep.
So I think that Trevor Lawrence probably will get drafted. Is he going to perform? I honestly, I don't know. I think it's weird with the development of players nowadays and how much training they can get at a young age. We saw what guys like Patrick Mahomes can come in and do. We saw what guys like Lamar Jackson can come in and do. We saw what guys like blanking on it, Joe Burrow come in and do.
Yep.
Hell, even Daniel Jones, like I wasn't super high on Daniel Jones, and he wasn't a bad quarterback. Yeah. Great for fantasy. But so I think Trevor he's got some good. I mean, he's got DJ Chark out there. He's got Tim Tebow. So like, and James Robinson. Oh, James Robinson was one of my sleepers last year.
Yeah,
he put on all season. So like, you get him a cast of guys. I'm fully confident that he's a competent quarterback. I'm just always pretty hesitant with rookies.
Yes.
But I do think that I think his upside for fantasy production is better than not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like you said, he's getting the cast around him, and like, yeah, no joking aside, Tebow is there. Does he make the team? Is a true question mark. But they go out and draft ETN right behind him, who played with him at Clemson. They go out and sign Marvin Jones, who it was very, very solid on a very terrible Lions team. Not necessarily discrediting Matthew Stafford, but just the way the entire
team.
Yeah, and so Marvin Jones goes to a new scene down there in Jacksonville, and he's got a young rookie slinging the ball to him. Like you said, they got DJ Shark. I mean, they have some stuff.
And they got Urban Meyer, who's a college-minded coach coming into a position where now he gets to mold a college-minded player. So the connect, not like he's coming in with a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to like change the chemistry and change the atmosphere of the organization. Like he gets to kind of mold this team a little bit easier, I think, because of who you have at the helm.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, I'm interested, because I don't think like in a 10 team or even a 12 team, you see a Trevor Lawrence unless, it's a bye week and maybe they just need a start or something. But maybe in those deeper leagues where you do have two quarterbacks and you have some super flexes or something like that, that's where you would see maybe a Trevor Lawrence pop in and get some time on somebody's team. Some of the people that are kind of out there I'm kind of leaning as just a football fan. I really like what they got going there in Carolina. Yeah, they're in a tough division, going against obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got the New Orleans Saints, but Drew Brees is gone, and they got Jameis Winston, who throws 50 touchdowns, but also throws 50 interceptions. And he's excited and claims the glory for that. I do kind of wonder how much, the transition from Drew Brees to a Jameis Winston and a Sam Darnold to a Christian McCaffrey, those types of moves, like, does that increase their value or does that decrease their value? And like, what I mean by that is, like, is that going to increase Christian McCaffrey's production because he's now got a quarterback, not Teddy Bridgewater, but a Sam Darnold who is a pocket passer, can sit in there, they hand it off, and maybe hits him with some dump offs? Or does that hurt him in a way? And then kind of vice versa, as in, like, Jameis Winston, he's not Drew Brees, let's be honest. And so is he going to be looking to dump the ball off more to Alvin Kamara and hand the ball off to Alvin Kamara? So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so it's kind of funny. Those are two very different players. I think Darnold automatically increases Christian McCaffrey because, if anything, let's look at this as a Sam Darnold maybe isn't the most competent quarterback. Well, who's the most confident person in that backfield or on that offense then? Christian McCaffrey. It automatically ups his workload. Now, you always have to worry about Christian McCaffrey possibly being a little injury prone for at least a small stint throughout the season, just with the load of work that he might be getting. As far as what's going on down with the Saints in New Orleans, I think that the type of passer that Jameis Winston is gives more benefit to their whole receiving corps.
Mm-hmm.
Does like to sling the ball. Is he going to throw 30 interceptions? Yeah, but he can throw 50 touchdowns in an offense that's primarily pass heavy. The type of offense, even though they might have to dumb it down a little bit for him because Drew Brees is obviously one of the greatest that's ever played, he could do a lot, but they like to sling the ball. I don't think that's going to change. So you're still going to have a gunslinger. You're still going to have receivers out there. If I was everybody, I'd stay away from Michael Thomas. Would not touch Michael Thomas at all. That's just me.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too, is he had surgery.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he had surgery as well, so he's already automatically going to be out, I think, 4 to 6 weeks potentially. I believe 4 for sure. And so that already kind of eliminates that. And then, it really does kind of just become the question mark, is he still got it as much as he used to when, he was healthy, and because he didn't play a whole lot last year either.
No, I drafted him last year, ended up using him. Somebody really wanted Michael Thomas last year from me. So I definitely milked it for as much as I could get. Ended up getting Calvin Ridley and 2 other guys, and I played them the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And they were phenomenal. Michael Thomas hardly even touched the field.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I think that's incredible. I think, Michael Thomas, honestly, is that's going to be tough, because those are the types of guys, like, there for a while, I started questioning, like, without Aaron Rodgers, is Adams the same? But now, obviously, Rodgers is back, and we understand that that's going to be his go-to. Like, Devontae Adams is an absolute beast. And then you start to see some of these others, like Kyler Murray goes out and they get AJ Green. They go out, they have D-Hop on the team. Larry Fitzgerald, I think, is actually stepping away from football and is going to retire, but Christian Kirk is still there. They go out and,
James Conner is there.
Yeah, James
Drake is there.
Chase Edmonds. I mean, so some of these really are going to be a special like entity, and like you're going to see some pretty cool stuff. So I'm super excited for fantasy football, man. I'm going to touch on this comment from Michael real quick.
I'm sorry. Kenyon Drake is no longer there. I forgot he went to Vegas. My bad.
Yep. Kenyon Drake went to the Raiders.
Gotcha. The Raiders.
Darcy says, I wouldn't draft Gray, but he's a waiver wire pickup that honestly, if he gets any targets, he's going to be better than half the tight ends you could draft. I agree to some degree with that. I think it depends too, because there really are going to be about 7 tight ends you could probably say that are going to be solid. And then I think after that, it kind of falls off. Obviously Kelsey, you got Mark Andrews, you got George Kittle, you got Darren Waller, Eric Ebron even there, because we know Ben likes to throw to the tight ends. Hunter Henry is moving up to the Patriots.
Jonnu Smith is also with the Patriots.
Jonnu Smith, Dawson Knox over there with Buffalo. And so, yeah, man, I think that you got some people before you would take Noah for sure. I do agree with the waiver wire pickup, though, at some point. And I really do. Even if your team, like, perfect example, man, I'm in a, I think, 16-team league. It's a dynasty-style league. Every year you go to a fantasy draft or salary cap. Like, I drafted Noah Gray in the draft this year because our draft is actually like rookies. People that enter into the draft. That's what we take. And I actually drafted Noah very late into the draft, but he's on my taxi squad in case something happens. So, I do see at times where you would take a Noah Gray for sure. And I'm super pumped. That's my guy. I'm convinced that at some point I'm going to be getting a jersey of Noah Gray. So yeah, man. But any last thoughts before we wrap this one up? This is obviously the first episode of hopefully many. We got some plans. We definitely want to get this out to you guys. We're super excited about this opportunity. I'm glad, first of all, I was able to meet Blake. I mean, this is going to be some incredible stuff. We're going to continue to get better at what we do. And so, yeah, man, do you have anything last words for the people?
No, man, this has been absolutely awesome. Obviously, I'm glad that we got introduced the way we did, just really via Twitter, which is hilarious. Like, I don't think I've ever met somebody from Twitter. And like, you know what I mean? But it's been fun. Obviously, we've had you on, I host a show on Sports Radio 810 for Baseball Tonight. Lucas is always on there giving us amazing content, just having a good time in general. And hopefully we'll see him on the show this Sunday this week if everything is works out for our schedules. But no, man, this is going to be great. I'm excited. Hopefully we can do this at least every week. And the only regret that I have about today is that we're having to end, because I could do this all night.
Yeah, man. That's the thing, too. We might continue to start going longer. I would like to try to keep them to 40 minutes, just that way we can keep the people's interest. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll definitely, because I think when we start talking about the actual positions, I think that's where you and I are really going to dive in deep, and really, like, the excitement of fantasy football is truly going to come out, because, man, I'm just even looking over here, and the 41st pick that a lot of people are taking, it dropped to round 5, was like Jamar Chase. Like, where does Jamar Chase go? And I'm seeing him above Adam Thielen. Like, that right there fires me up, because I'm like, holy smokes. And then you start talking about, there's just so many. Allen Robinson. Who's going to be throwing Allen Robinson? Josh Jacobs. Is he actually still got it there in Oakland? Like, there's so many things that I'm excited to talk about. This is going to be so much fun, man. And I'm excited to give it to the people of the BWKC. Truly, it's going to be fantastic. So what do you got to say to finish it out, man?
Nothing. I hope you guys keep tuning in, because we're going to be giving you probably some of the best fantasy breakdown stuff. I mean, obviously, you got your guys over there at ESPN who can do a good job. There's a ton of guys online that do fantasy podcasts, but I promise you this, they're not going to be as fun or as entertaining as either me or Lucas are. This was a very mild version. I promise you, once we get into it, we're going to start having some fun. We're going to start giving you guys amazing breakdowns. And the one thing I want is we're going to be getting feedback. I'd love you guys chiming in, asking questions. That helps and makes our job even more fun when we feel like we're helping a community. You know what I mean? So, and just banded together with everybody. And this is going to be an awesome season. I can't wait.
Heck yeah, man. And you guys know how we wrap this up, and definitely stay tuned. I think we're going to start popping these out on social media. We'll letting everybody know when they're going to happen more consistently. And so, yeah, I'm excited. You guys know how we wrap this up, how we end this. I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC. And as always, have a good day.